Welcome to Titan HST's Business Continuity Today, hosted by Todd DeVoe, where planning meets reality.
Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are at in this fine land. My name is Todd DeVoe, Director of Emergency Management at Titan HST, and I also teach at the post-secondary level, and learning new things and sharing them is what I love doing. It's a passion for me. And speaking about learning new things, well, today we're going to get into what it means to sharpen the saw. And I have a good friend of mine who loves Covey, right? Stephen Covey. And he's been a proponent of his work for, I don't know, many years now. Shares tidbits and all this kind of stuff with me all the time. And so much so that I have this, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's a card deck. And each week you go through and you look to see how you can make yourself better for that week. And it's really kind of cool. And in the 7 habits, number 7 is sharpening your saw. In other words, how to make yourself better. Now, I'm sure you've all heard the story, but I'll share the story anyway because I find it very, well, telling. So the story goes with Stephen Covey. He starts off saying, guy's walking through the woods. He comes up to this woodcutter, and the guy's sawing feverishly at this tree, and it's just working very hard, and the tree isn't falling. And so the traveler says to the woodsman, "Hey, why don't you stop and sharpen your saw?" And the woodsman goes, "I don't have time to sharpen my saw. Can't you see I'm trying to cut this tree down?" And obviously I paraphrase that story a little bit. If you read it, it's probably a little bit deeper than that. But the idea here is do you take time to make yourself better? And making yourself better makes yourself more efficient in what you do. And because of that concept and the positive peer pressure, I'll say, that I have from my circle, is that we're continuously looking for ways to improve ourselves. And interestingly enough, just before I got on the show today in the green room, we're having a discussion about attending conferences. And I know some people love to go to them, some people hate to go to them. But either way, those conferences are a way to sharpen your saw. Now you get to go there, interact with others that are in the same profession of you, and then you get to sit down and listen to speakers that are doing research and writing and are influencing in certain areas that you're looking at, and then you can interact with them, and really get into what is going on and to become an industry leader in your chosen profession. Now, with business continuity and emergency management, there are plenty of conferences to attend, whether it's a regional conference, a statewide conference, whether it's a national conference, like IEM has a conference coming up in November, which I'll be attending. And those type of conferences, you can get a lot of information, or you can go down to symposiums. All those type of things are critical in having you develop as an individual professional, and become a better employee where you're at. The other side too is, if you take a look behind me, obviously you see all those books, and reading is critical. I wrote a piece the other day on reading and why it's important to read, whether you're reading for nonfiction, which I mostly do, or fiction books. And you can learn from fiction as well, right? And we've seen like the books that are created for some business books that are fiction-based books, storytelling books, but actually have a parable to them that there are lessons learned through those stories. Like Well Done is a good example of that, or Who Moved My Cheese, those type of books. Now, obviously, if you look behind me, I have mostly nonfiction back there, and reading in areas that aren't normally what you would consider your profession. So, for instance, I like to read and listen to and pay attention to what's going on in economics. Not so much like investing and stuff like that. Yes, I mean that's part of what economics is, but like realistically, do how do we look at things in the economic lens? And the reason why I find that critical is if you think about what we do in emergency management and business continuity, is there you want to know what the cost factor is associated with the programs that we create, right? What is your return on investment, right? Like, how does that impact the organization? And if you could put numbers to that and understand that, I think that's critical to creating good programs. And one of the best courses I ever took, hardest course I ever took at the same time, was cost benefit analysis I took during my MPA program. And I think if you can really master how to do cost benefit analysis and you put things in that lens, that is when you make decisions based uh, upon the economics of it. Now, I'm not saying it's the only factor you should take a look at, right? Sometimes if you take a look at numbers only, you're missing that large picture of what this means. But having that good understanding of what a cost benefit analysis is and how that's going to impact the organization, that is one step, right? Would you know that if you weren't sharpening the saw by reading some basic economics books or keeping up with what's going on, and seeing how you're using the interest rates and stuff like this to control things? That is the thing that I think is interesting about economics and why I read it. I like to read history as well, to see where we came from and where we're going. Like behind me, there's a book called Raven Rock, really fantastic book of the history of where we are with emergency management, business continuity, continuity of government programs, why they're started, where they're at. Very, very interesting book as well. Leadership, like You're It, that's behind me. Great book on leadership and what it means to be a meta leader and how you have to implement, because at some point you will be it, especially in this business, right? And take a look at different ideas of what it is with leadership and why that's important for you as somebody who should be a leader, right? If you are in this business continuity, right, or an emergency management or crisis management, right, you have to learn how to lead, right? Whether you're leading up, whether you're leading down or leading across, you have to become a leader. We've had many discussions on what that means, right? And then like new ideas that are coming out that we really haven't like really delved into. So if we think of really robust organizations, right, and what does that mean to be robust, right? And then you go, okay, well that's a really kind of a squishy terminology. And you go, well, let's be resilient. And again, that's another squishy terminology. And so Nicholas Taleb wrote a book called Anti-Fragile, right? And in there, he describes what it truly means to be an anti-fragile organization or individual or community, where crisis doesn't destroy you, right? It makes you stronger, right? And that is where we need to be looking at as well. We're heading towards some really rocky, I'll go back to economics, some really rocky times when you think about economics, right? And we have gas prices going up, we're coming into that, right? We're making decisions and looking at like anti-fragile, what decisions can we make today that in the future will make us more robust, stronger, and anti-fragile, so when you come on the other side of this small crisis that we're going into, that we become stronger. These are the type of things that you need to be reading to make yourself stronger and better and sharpening that saw. Back to history, I'd love to read biographies of past leaders such as generals and presidents and business leaders and things like this, and just to try to get into their head to see what were they were doing and what were they thinking on decision making. And that helps you go okay, you look at somebody who's under John F. Kennedy during the Cuban Missile Crisis, or Teddy Roosevelt. His history is very, very interesting. And even if you don't like them politically, who cares, right? Or if you believe in their politics or not, it's like, what did they do as individuals, and how did they lead through certain crises. I think that type of stuff is really very useful. Again, if you take a look at generals or other business leaders and stuff like this, same thing. So sharpening the saw is one of those critical steps for personal development and personal growth, and it's something that you can never stop doing, or shouldn't stop doing, I should say. Right? I'm getting older here in age, and I'm continuously learning and trying to better myself every day. Right? And if you're not bettering yourself every day, you're going to become stagnant and make poor decisions. And that is when you need to think about doing something other than what you're at. So sharpening that saw keeps you fresh, keeps your mind young, keeps your thinking process young. And then it goes into like getting into like thought process and what does that mean, and design thinking and systems thinking, and how that all interacts together when you're making decisions when you're under pressure. Again, sharpening the saw is what you should be doing. And I'm going to say, if you are listening to Business Continuity today or any other podcasts that are out there, you're already one step ahead of others. You're already in there sharpening your saw. You're trying to learn something, trying to get knowledge on things, and yes, you're in a step in the right direction. So I'm sure I'm a little bit speaking to the choir on this one, but I already thought it was important to share this with you guys today. And as we're going into the holiday seasons, right? Great opportunity to help others sharpen their saw by buying a book for them, or getting some sort of program, or sharing business continuity today with them and have them listen as well, because sharpening the saw is in many different ways. So everybody, I'd like to say thank you for staying here listening today. And please follow us on your favorite podcast player. Check us out on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram. And until next week, stay safe, stay hydrated.